and won't be for a while, right around here. If you are looking for more reliable content from me, definitely check out my Patreon. There are almost 200 videos over there, and you can join us for as low as $2 a month. No pressure, of course, but if you're looking for more content, that is definitely where to find it. I'm still posting regularly over there. So, tonight's case is definitely one that, in my opinion, goes down in the unsolved mystery portion of my channel, because I have no clue what happened. So I'm very, very curious. I love it when you guys post your theories in the comments, and I feel like we have not had a good case to discuss in a while. So this is another one that actually cuts pretty close to my heart, because it is about 2 Native American kids. One of them's 20, but they're kids. So, okay. We are going to December of 1992, but I'm going to give you a little background first. Tonight's case is about Arnold Archambeau and Ruby Bruguier. Arnold was 20 and Ruby was 18 in 1992. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Arnold first. This is one of those cases where I had to dig pretty deep in order to just find out something about these cases. And I don't know if it's because it happened so long ago, but I really always want to find out some kind of personal detail to make myself and you guys remember that I'm not just telling you a story, I'm telling you about real people's lives here. So Arnold was a Yankton Sioux. He was born in 1972, and he was raised on the reservation in Charles Mix County, South Dakota. His grandmother took care of him after his mother passed away when he was a teenager. Having lost my mother at 39, I can't imagine losing her in my teens. I can't even get my head around that. Arnold would eventually move in with his auntie, Karen Tuttle. Arnold was described as kind. He was popular and close to his family. He'd never gotten in any sort of serious trouble. He enjoyed playing sports, and he played basketball at Marty Indian School, where he was selected to be a part of the all-Native American team, which toured the Soviet Union in 1990, which that's amazing to be included in that. In addition to his extracurricular activities, he worked at the Fort Randall Casino. Ruby Bruguier was born January 11th, 1974, in Wagner, South Dakota. Her parents were Quentin and Myrtle. She was one of 8 children, and like Arnold, she was a part of the Yankton, there's no S, Sioux tribe, and she grew up on the reservation. She was described by the people that knew her as gentle and nice. She also had a good sense of humor. Her father, Quentin, recalled that Ruby was a gentle person. She was always laughing and joking around. She never really got into any type of harsh fight with her parent, and if she ever did anything wrong, she immediately confessed. In 1991, she and Arnold became parents with their little daughter, whose name is Riikka. From the start, it was a struggle. Arnold and Ruby were wanted to go with them. I didn't really find out exactly what they were doing that night. All that I know is they were definitely drinking. When the three of them returned early the next morning, super tired, to pick up Erica, Ruby's uncle was like, no, you guys are still drunk. I'm not letting the baby go with you in the car. Go home, get some sleep, come back when you're sober and rested. So they agreed. The three of them got back into the car, which I don't know why he just didn't suggest that they stayed there if he could tell that they were still intoxicated. I don't know. So shortly before 7 a.m., and I don't know why also Tracy went with them, because they were at her house and then they left again. There are some details about this case that are definitely not released to the public. Alright, anyway, sorry. Shortly before 7 a.m., they pulled up to a stop sign at an intersection near Lake Andes. Arnold was driving, and according to Tracy, he looked back and forth. There was no one coming, so he started to go at the stop sign. And remember, it is December, so it is at this point that the car struck a patch of black ice, and Arnold lost control. The vehicle spun and flipped over and came to rest in a ditch next to the road. Tracy's recollection of what occurred after this is pretty hazy, as you can imagine, but she said the next thing that she remembered, Arnold was not in the car, and she hadn't seen him get out. Ruby was still in the passenger seat, and she was, like, screaming or yelling, oh my god, and she was, like, hitting the car in frustration because she was trying to get out. Somehow, Ruby managed to get the passenger door open wide enough that she could get out of the car. Tracy decided, okay, I'm gonna follow her out, right? But the door shut behind Ruby. And this car is upside down, okay? So Tracy stays in the car as she's confused as to why Arnold and Ruby would just leave her there. When paramedics and police officers arrived that morning, and I am not sure the time difference between the accident and when they arrived, I'm imagining that this is a pretty, what's the word I'm looking for? Empty, rural area, that's the word I'm looking for. So she could have been there for a while. So they find only Tracy, and she tells them, to the best of her knowledge, exactly what had happened. She did admit that all three of them had been drinking, but authorities, of course, immediately start to look for Arnold and Ruby, fearing that they might be hurt. Deputy Sheriff Bill Youngstrom was one of the first responders on the scene. Youngstrom and his officers repeatedly walked up and down the road on both sides, looking in the ditches as they went, as well as along the adjacent disused rail bed and the nearby lake, in an attempt to find any sign of Arnold and Ruby. However, they found nothing, no bodies, no disturbed ice anywhere, as far as they could tell. Now, I didn't find out exactly, so there's black ice on the road, so I would assume that there's snow on the ground as well, but I can't confirm this. So, family members come and aid in the search as well. They cover the same ground over several weeks, but they still come up empty-handed. Investigators start to wonder if the missing couple were worried about the legal ramifications because Arnold had been driving drunk that morning. They began to assumption, Arnold and Ruby were never entered into a national missing persons database. And I apologize, it sounds like my neighbor is going to start cutting their grass. Hopefully you cannot hear it. Interestingly, the police spoke to a witness who reported seeing Arnold and Ruby get into a car heading east right after the accident, but no other details about this sighting have been released to the public for me to tell you about. A woman who knew Arnold also came forward and said that she had seen him on New Year's Eve, so like 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, with 3 other people. This woman did pass a polygraph test. Controversially, 2 of the 3 people that he was supposed to be with that night failed their polygraph tests. I couldn't find out if the 3rd person was ever brought in and questioned, passed or failed or anything. Several other people reportedly saw Arnold in this time frame as well, but there were no sightings of Ruby. On March 10th, 3 months after Arnold and Ruby had vanished, a motorist makes a discovery. He finds a body in a ditch along Route 281, where the accident had occurred back in December. And this body was so badly decomposed that it had to be identified by the sight of a very distinct tattoo. This was Ruby, and she was about 75 feet away from the crash site. So the authorities are thinking Arnold has to be here somewhere close by. The authorities have the ditch that Ruby's body was found in drained, and they soon find Arnold under 4 feet of water and roughly 15 feet away from where Ruby was discovered. Now, Arnold was far less decomposed than Ruby, and he was easily identifiable. Ruby was still wearing the same clothing that she had last been seen in. However, it could not be confirmed that Arnold was wearing the same outfit. Additionally, Ruby's shoes and her glasses were missing. They were never found. Investigators found 3 mysterious keys in Arnold's pockets. One that belonged to a car, not his car, and 2 that seemed to be for a house. Despite their efforts, authorities were never able to match these keys to a car or a house in the area. Upon examination of the remains, the Minnehaha County coroner concluded that neither one of them had been badly injured in the car accident, and that both of them had died from hypothermia. However, he could not determine when Arnold and Ruby had passed. Now, despite this ambiguous time of death, authorities believe that Arnold and Ruby may have died somewhere else and been placed in the ditch later. The families were absolutely upset by the way that the authorities handled this case. When they were asked, Deputy Youngstrom said that he had taken pictures of the accident scene that morning, but the negatives were blank due to a processing error. Arnold's cousin Mike Archambeau says, "It sounds like you're trying to cover your own butt. Sounds to me like you didn't investigate anything in the first place." Native and Indigenous Americans were often overlooked and set aside when things happen like this, Ruby's sister said. When a Native American is charged with something, it is pursued heavily. However, when a Native American is a victim, it is not pursued with the same perseverance, said Arnold's Aunt Karen. Now, despite their feelings about this case, the victims' families are still inclined to agree with the police about one central case theory. These 2 bodies had been moved. Ruby's father, Quentin, said they had to die first airing, but none of them were deemed viable. Deputy Sheriff Bill Youngstrom remained convinced that the young couple had died somewhere else and were later brought back to the ditch. He said, quote, "I myself personally walked that ditch several times during that time period. I've gotten written affidavits from people that also walked it. People that have nothing to do with this case. They could not have been there. They could not have been missed." End quote. So if nefarious foul play was behind the deaths of Arnold and Ruby, both of whom were well liked in their community, then who did this to them? And what was their motive? How could they have concealed the truth for so long in such a close-knit community? As with other aspects of this case, those questions remain unanswered. The FBI eventually took over the investigation before closing it 4 years later, citing a lack of evidence supporting foul play. Special Agent Matt Miller of the Bureau's Sioux Falls field office stated, "There isn't any indication of anything else. All we know is that they appeared in that ditch, and that's it." Though this case has not been actively investigated in over a decade, it continues to haunt law enforcement. Upon his retirement in 2011, Sheriff Westendorf described it as the absolute most puzzling case of his career. He said, quote, "I believe they were placed in the ditch after they passed away somewhere else. I do know they weren't there in January. It's pretty hard to prove somebody was murdered when you don't have any evidence to prove it." End quote. Ruby's parents adopted baby Erica, and Quentin, Ruby's father, passed away in 2001. As of 2024, there have been no further developments in the case of Arnold Archambeau and Ruby Bruguier. Two young parents who had their whole lives ahead of them. Their case remains shrouded in mystery. So let's talk about this a little. Let's say that they died in the ditch that night. I find it really strange that that would be the case. If the ice was not disturbed, then how did they end up in the water? People walked that area so much, I can imagine. I mean, I myself would have been out there walking and walking and walking, trying to find my family member. And the fact that they were like 75 feet away from where the accident happened, somebody walked that area, and there's no way you can tell me that they didn't. Why were they never able to find Ruby's shoes or her glasses? And if Arnold was so much less decomposed than Ruby, how could they not say that he was wearing the same outfit or not? Like, I couldn't find any descriptions of what he was potentially wearing that night versus what they believe that he had on when he was found. And why was she so much more decomposed than him? How did they get away from the site so fast? Like, did someone drive by and they were like, "Oh my God, pick me up, take me where," like, did they hide for those 3 months? I can't imagine that. Everything that I read and told you about Ruby leads me to believe that she would not have done that. She was the type of person that confessed things whenever she did something wrong, so I can't imagine watching. Please leave your theories down below as to what you think happened to Ruby and Arnold in this case. Do you think that Arnold was flung from the car and he landed in that ditch and no one saw him? Or do you think they were hiding out for months and some kind of foul play happened and they were put back in that ditch? And tell me if it makes you just as frustrated that minority cases do not get as much advertising as some of the other cases that we know. Leave a comment down below, even if it's just an emoji. You have no idea how much it helps people find my channel.